Before we get any further, this video contains spoilers for The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 14. If you haven't seen it yet, we highly recommend you head on over to Disney Plus and watch it before continuing with the video. If you're all caught up, or just don't care, let's dive right in. We're back this week with another nail-biting episode of The Bad Batch, where Crosshair has completely turned his back on the Empire, and Clone Force 99 begins to realize something is very, very wrong. We'd already been anticipating much of this episode, so the brutal torture the Empire was using didn't come as much of a surprise. The clone decommissioning continues, only now it's reached a new level of evil. Clone experimentation. We aren't 100% sure what Hemlock is doing with the imprisoned clones, but we're willing to bet it isn't discovering the cure for cancer. The torture we saw this episode wasn't surprising, but it's still distressing to see how far the Empire went to abuse the clones, whom it considered Imperial property. What might seem strange, however, was that it wasn't just Imperials willingly participating in this depravity, but also clone Commandos. In today's video, we'll be talking about why the clone Commandos were still loyal to the Empire, despite the Sith they were pulling. Before we get any further, let's take a quick look at what clone Commandos were, because they were very different from regular clones and ARC troopers, the other common clone variants. Regular clones, or regs as they were called, made up the majority of the GAR. They were clones of Jango Fett, whose DNA was genetically modified to boost desirable traits and eliminate undesirable ones. That way, regs were stronger and healthier than the average person, with camaraderie and obedience coded into their genetic makeup. Regs who served with distinction and proved themselves capable on the battlefield were promoted to the rank of ARC Trooper. These troopers received leadership training so they could lead units of other clones, whether they were regs or ARC Troopers. They served as tactical commanders and command liaisons with the Jedi, and they were also more likely to be sent on the more difficult missions, like saving Jedi Master Evan Peel from the Citadel on Lola Seyu. We've seen several ARC Troopers throughout the various Star Wars shows, but the ones that stand out the most are the likes of Echo and Fives. Clone Commandos were another thing entirely. These elite warriors were also clones of Jango Fett, but they received more advanced genetic modification than their common clone brothers. One trait that was programmed into them was being more squad-centric. Unlike the other clones, who worked well together, the first clone Commandos operated in small squads of 4 and didn't work well with other clone units. Those clones chosen for the Commando program were trained by Jango Fett himself to become the galaxy's most lethal warriors, and, in many ways, the Kaminoans and Fett succeeded. The clone Commandos were efficient killing machines, often sent on small infiltration, sabotage, and assassination missions. Clone Commandos weren't just bred to be more efficient, however. The Kaminoans took extra measures to ensure they could control these elite troopers, and, unfortunately for the clone Commandos, the unforeseen consequence was that, whereas other clones took to fighting against Imperial abuse, the clone Commandos became the Empire's most loyal followers. In 2 seasons, The Bad Batch has given us nothing but examples of clone troopers across the board starting to realize how abusive the Empire is and rebelling. Whether it was the Bad Batch themselves, or Cody, or all those regs starting to defect, it's more than clear that the average clone trooper was able to go against their inbuilt obedience. It certainly wasn't easy. They were genetically programmed to be complacent even when given suicidal orders. Everything the clones did, they did for the Republic, even if that meant certain death. But the Empire's betrayal left them not only embittered, but maligned enough to leave. This isn't a huge surprise, as we saw plenty of clone troopers going against orders during the Clone Wars, like when the clones turned on Pong Krell or when Rex decided to leave Cut Lawquane alone. It's great seeing the clones spit in the Empire's face and set up a clone network to help get the rest of their brothers out, but that happiness dims a little when you realize that the only clones defecting are regs and ARCs. So far in this season, almost every single time we've seen a clone commando on screen, the clone was following orders to the letter. In this week's episode alone, we saw clone commandos guarding the clone prisoners at the start, erasing the Empire's data on the transport ship Rex, Echo, and the others intercepted, or participating in Crosshair's torture. We'll go a step further and say those commandos were present at the research facility and stood idly by while their brethren were brought in, locked up like lab rats in tiny cells, then presumably experimented on until they died. As distressing as that is, it's pretty much expected given how the clone commandos were designed. We mentioned that they received advanced genetic modification compared to regs and arcs. One aspect of this was that the clone commandos were designed to be far more loyal and susceptible to following orders without question. This was a sort of built-in safeguard because they were also designed to operate far more independently with more independent thought than the average clone. They were bred for infiltration, after all, and the commandos had to be capable of operating without direct orders from Republic Command. The increased loyalty and obedience were there to ensure the commandos didn't go rogue on them. That way, the Republic wouldn't have to deal with another fiasco like the Null-class ARC troopers. That's why, when Order 66 came, most clone commandos obeyed it without hesitation, then continued to serve the Empire, no matter what the Empire did. The orders they received could have had war crime on the briefing dock, and they still would have followed through because that's how they were bred, and that makes us incredibly sad. Of course, there were exceptions to this rule, more so in Legends than canon. In canon, the only real exception we see is Gregor, who also made an appearance this episode. A clone commando from the beginning, Gregor was different. He suffered a traumatic head injury during the Clone Wars, and as the sole survivor of a massacre on Sarish, his genetic conditioning wasn't as strong as that of other commandos. Even then, he starts the series off by training the new stormtroopers. In Legends, we see more clone commandos flipping the bird to the Empire. Some chose to flee to Mandalore rather than become Imperial commandos at the beck and call of the New Order. Other commando teams outright refused to follow Order 66. For example, Ion Team refused to execute Rowan Shrine, their Jedi commander, because, as they reasoned, they didn't believe the Jedi would betray the Republic. This made the Order invalid in their eyes, and that independent thought allowed them to resist the Order. As good as these examples from Legends are, it doesn't erase the fact that the vast majority of the clone commandos faithfully served the Galactic Empire. Their indoctrinated loyalty was also the most likely reason the Empire didn't decommission them or lock them up as they did to other clones. They knew the commandos wouldn't turn on them, so it was far easier for the Empire to continue to use their property until it broke down or died. Why waste an excellent resource when you weren't afraid of it shooting you in the back? On a related note, that's one of the reasons we try not to hate on Crosshair too much. Clone Force 99 were certainly an oopsie batch of clone commandos, but regardless of their quirky mutations, they were still part of the same commando project as the rest of them. Hunter, Tech, and Wrecker were able to maintain more of that independent thought and judgment, but if Crosshair got a higher dose of indiscriminate obedience, it's not entirely his fault. We think it's part of the reason why he was so much more obsessed with the good soldiers follow orders mantra the Kaminoans programmed into them all. But he's here now, and he's ready to stick it to the Empire. We don't know about you, but this redemption arc is something we've been hoping for since the previous season, and now that it's finally here, we can't wait to see him reunited with Clone Force 99. But this is assuming he doesn't get killed in the next few episodes. But that's the question for next week. And that's our take on the clone commandos seemingly cooperating willingly with the Empire. What do you think? Do you agree that Crosshair only went with the Empire for as long as he did because of his programming, or do you think he had other reasons? What do you think about the difference between regs, commandos, and arcs? Let us know all this and more in the comments section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.